Has anyone seen Robin Beck? I know that some of you like to play a little bit of Name That Tune with the song we choose to start our show every day. Has anyone seen Robin Beck? That's a song called First Time, and it went number one on the UK singles chart back in this day, in 1988. But here's the thing. The song by somebody named Robin Beck. If you remember Robin Beck, you're a better person than I am. Sorry, Robin. I have no recollection of your musical existence until today. And we get to play what turned into a one-hit wonder. Why? Because it was used in an advertisement for Coca-Cola. The song shows up in a Coke ad. It goes to the top of the charts. And on this day in 1988, Robin Beck's First Time was at number one on the UK singles charts. It is 6 minutes after 9 on this Tuesday morning, the 19th of November. Thank you very much for stopping by, spending some of your valuable time with us. I really do appreciate that. Been kind of marinating on some of the things that we learned on the show yesterday and throughout the day, particularly around that coalition of municipal councillors who have signed on to a letter asking that the notwithstanding clause be avoided when it comes to clearing encampments. And you know me. I like to, as my favorite St. Catherine's beer store guy likes to say,
do the math.
So I did the math. And I gave some thought to the number of councillors who have signed on to this letter asking that the province step back from invoking the notwithstanding clause, the number of mayors who have also done so. And I thought, okay, I mean, I'll get into those numbers around 9:15, but I also want to give you the opportunity to have your say on how we deal with encampments in our cities. So we'll get to that, and phone lines will be open to you, as they always are. As soon as we begin the show, the phone lines are open so you can weigh in with your thoughts on various issues. But when I started breaking things down, I wonder sometimes if your voice is being represented in all of this. So, again, we'll get to that, have open lines around 9:15 this morning about what you would like to see happen when it comes to encampments in our cities. I was listening to Rob Snow the other day, who, of course, comes on with Now You Know between 1 and 3 every day here on 570 News Radio. And they were talking about, the difficulty young people are having buying homes and the challenges that exist financially, cost of living, et cetera. And some of the old, and quite frankly, they make sense to me. They ring true in my ears. But these ideas that nobody knows how to budget anymore. Nobody wants to start in the basement or the outhouse and work their way up to the penthouse. It's all about this now, and you can't have a modestly decorated home. You need the top of the line, everything, et cetera, et cetera. And I take it with a bit of a grain of salt. Things are different. And for the most part, they're much better. Not just different, but better. But wouldn't you know, not long after listening and hearing some of those opinions on why it's so difficult for young people to buy homes today, I see a story on the evening news we were watching at dinner about young men in particular and how much of a market there is in the personal hygiene, cologne particularly, area. And they documented what young men are choosing now when it comes to cologne because they want to smell better. And they were showing, like this one kid, 19 years old, buying a $390 bottle of Tom Ford something or other. I can tell you how many times in my life I've bought a Tom Ford anything, but $390 because he wants to smell good. And he says, if I'm going to make a good first impression on a first date, I need to smell good. I don't know that you need to smell $390 good. How good is that? How good is that compared to the Brute or the Aqua Velva or the English leather we used to splash on our faces, fellas? I was a little bit taken aback. And then the same story reminded us of the Sephora craze for young women the year prior. And listen, You love your Sephora? Fill your boots at your Sephora. It's not inexpensive, though. And teenage girls using whatever money they earn at that store, guys buying $390 bottles of cologne, and you wonder why you're having trouble growing your bank account.
1, 2, 3.
All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. Number 1, say so long to the animals at Waterloo Park.
Many folks will look back with that same fond nostalgia that I have for bringing my kids to visit the animals when they were young. And ultimately, the EB Farm area currently does not live up to the standards of the rest of the park. And with the Waterloo Park Master Plan coming forward, this is a great opportunity for us to reimagine EB. And we've already seen a ton of great potential alternatives from the community that could revitalize the space. And hopefully this will help continue to contribute to making Waterloo Park the jewel of the city of Waterloo.
Ward 2 Councillor Royce Bodley at last night's meeting, where Waterloo Council unanimously decided to end the live animal display at Waterloo Park. The animals will be rehomed, and the former enclosure space will be reimagined as part of the Waterloo Park Plan update in 2025. Number 2, in Kitchener, Council has advanced construction of more than 600 units of housing. The new homes will be created in an 8-story building on Victoria Street South, a 45-story tower on King Street West, and a development of stacked townhouses on Trussler Road. Meantime, a report this morning from the Smart Prosperity Institute shows Kitchener as one of only 3 Ontario cities with housing starts per capita in the top 20 among the 100 largest Canadian cities. Overall, the report shows Ontario is falling behind on home building. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the federal government will announce today another 12 sites that have been identified as public lands that could be converted to housing. Among the sites is a parcel of public land in Whitehorse, Northwest Territories, that the city has been asking for repeatedly for years. In all, more than 80 parcels of public land have been identified for housing across the country, totaling more than 2,500 hockey rinks in size. Number 4, the Ontario government introduced legislation yesterday to shutter supervised consumption sites, including the facility on Duke Street in Kitchener. Waterloo Region's Drug Action Team says this legislation is widely expected to make things worse, not better, for both individual and community health and safety. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, Canada's annual inflation rate was 2% in October, according to Statistics Canada. Looking at the provincial breakdown in Ontario, we find that same 2% rate, up a tick from 1.9% in September. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. Many, no, I'll say some, have weighed in with their thoughts on clearing encampments, the use of the notwithstanding clause to do so, big city mayors, a coalition of municipal councillors. What about you? What do you think should be done? What can we do when it comes to clearing encampments and helping the people living within them? Would love your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. So I got to thinking yesterday, after we had a conversation to start the show with Regional Councillor Rob Deutschman, one of 42 municipal councillors across Ontario who have signed on to a letter opposing the use of the notwithstanding clause to clear encampments in cities. And we know that these encampments are in cities across the country, around the province. There's no question about it. And something Rob said really struck me, and that was that he felt it was important for him to use his platform as an elected representative to bring forward and advocate for what the people who elected him want him to advocate for. And I respect that a lot. I think that's what elected representatives should use their platforms for. And it got me thinking I mean, I will assume, because Rob is pretty engaged, that he does have his finger on the pulse of what people in Kitchener, in this case, because he's a regional councillor who represents Kitchener, what people in Kitchener expect of him, what they want our council to do about encampments. And in Rob's case, that is absolutely not invoking the notwithstanding clause. It is continued advocacy to upper levels of government to provide more housing, mental health, addictions supports. So I gave some more thought to the numbers, because you know me. I always love to bounce some numbers around in my head. And you take, well, let's start with the Big City Mayors Caucus. That's kind of what got this ball rolling, right? So the mayors of municipalities in this province, greater than 100,000 people population, the mayors of those cities make up the Big City Mayors Caucus. There are 29 of those mayors of cities of more than 100,000 people. And of those 29, 15 mayors asked the province to use the notwithstanding clause to give them the power to clear encampments. So 15 of 29, you're basically half. Like, that's a pretty significant number. However, if you peel it back another layer and you consider there are some 440 municipalities in the entire province, not just the big ones, but 440 in total, and you take 15 out of the 440, you're thinking, okay, well, and every one of those municipalities has a mayor or a reeve or something, some elected leader of a council. Now we're down around maybe 3% of mayors in this province, at least those that we've heard from, have spoken up and asked the premier to use the notwithstanding clause. 3% of the mayors. Now, consider the councillors. 42 councillors in this coalition. Fair enough. It's more than 3 dozen, 3.5 dozen if you want to be exact about it. 42 people elected to municipal councils say, no, do not use the notwithstanding clause to clear encampments. We are opposed to that. Fair enough. 42 is not an insignificant number. But again, if you look at 440 municipalities in the province of Ontario, I don't know the exact number of councillors within all of those 440 municipalities. But I mean, even if we're going to conservatively say there are 5 per municipality, I mean, we've got, 8 in Waterloo, 9 in Cambridge, 11 in Kitchener. I could go on and on, but let's just say, for argument's sake, there are an average of 5 per. So now we're over 2,000 municipal councillors, and 42 of those 2,000 plus have signed on to this letter to say to the province, we're opposed to the use of the notwithstanding clause. Again, I'm doing some rough math here, but we're talking 2% of the entire population of councillors in Ontario are saying don't use the notwithstanding clause. So you got approximately, when I did the numbers, 3% of the mayors, 2% of the councillors. And what about you? What about the 15 million Ontarians? I know not all 15 million listen to this show, but we've counted at least 44 people that listen on a regular basis. And it just got me to wondering, is this representative? Is this 3% of mayors and 2% of councillors representative of what you want to see done when it comes to encampments? If you'd like to have your say, it's just an unofficial poll here on the Mike Farwell Show, but we're happy to hear from you with your thoughts on clearing encampments or not clearing them. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. My boss here at the radio station likes to joke that the crankier I am, the happier he is, because he thinks for some reason that a cranky Farwell makes for a more entertaining show. I don't know if Al knows my boss or was put up to this by my boss, but Al shared with me this morning a picture of the leaf collection underway in his Waterloo neighborhood. And let me just say, you know, I've been on this soapbox for a while, right? And it occurs to me that there was a picture on the front page of yesterday's Waterloo Region Record of an employee with the city of Kitchener clearing leaves at the roadside with a leaf blower on East Avenue in Kitchener. And I thought to myself, if the city really wanted to lead, pardon me, lead by example, it could just leave the leaves there on the grass in the park where they were being blown out to the street instead. Because most of our municipalities, I've seen the messaging from both Waterloo and Cambridge for sure. Forgive me if I missed it from Kitchener. But the messaging has been that there are options. Instead of raking to the curb, you can just leave the leaves, the nutrients that go to the soil, the protection of your gardens, etc. It's actually a very smart thing to do, and it's environmentally friendly. And there we had a picture on the front page of the city just blowing the leaves onto the road as well. Not exactly leading by example if we're serious about leaving the leaves. But Al's picture, which I have posted to our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show, shows you very clearly what goes into this process. And I think sometimes, we just rake them to the curb and then we go to work and the leaf ferry comes by and cleans them all up for us. This is a massive undertaking with a lot of people. So we pay all those salaries, and the heavy equipment involved in this it's nuts to me. When I first saw it, I never liked the practice. And then I saw it in action one day, and I could not believe what I was looking at. Dump trucks, front-end loaders, you name it. But don't worry, we're in a climate emergency, right? Honest to goodness. It fires me up. You can look at it for yourself. Maybe it'll change your mind about curbside leaf collection if you want to check out the photo. Facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. Al, thanks for starting my day on a cranky foot. This is The Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
The Supreme Court of the United States really needs to take a case about taxing churches because it hasn't done that since 1970. And since then, religion has become much less popular, especially with younger people. And it's not just millennials, my flock. The atheists, agnostics, and anti-religionists out there are now the second biggest denomination in America, right behind evangelicals. We're 22.8%. That means almost a quarter of us in America are being forced to subsidize a myth that we're not buying into. Why am I subsidizing their Sunday morning hobby? They don't subsidize mine.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
Yes, that is U.S.-based, of course, but Bill Maher from the HBO show Real Talk with his thoughts on whether or not churches should remain tax exempt. Dr. Lisa Richmond is the vice president of research with Cardis, which is a nonpartisan think tank based in Hamilton, Ontario. And Dr. Richmond joins the show. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What do you make of Bill Maher's take on taxing churches?
Yes, we used that as a hook in the report that we just published. So we took that as a challenge and we looked into the facts behind that. And essentially what we found was that the socioeconomic contribution that a faith community makes by being in its local community and by offering the programs and services that it does, among other things, is worth 10 times the amount of tax exemptions that congregation gets and the tax deductions that individuals can use if they give to a religious charity. So, in fact, if you want to talk about a subsidy, which I have a problem, I don't think that's an accurate term for this situation, but if you want to use that term, in fact, the subsidy goes the other way, 10 times greater from the religious community to society at large.
So in dollars and cents, can we quantify what these numbers look like?
Yes. So we've done a series of studies on this. So obviously to be reasonable and credible. We didn't just assign dollar values to things based on whims. We found a reliable source for putting a dollar value against each thing. So let me just give you one example. One of the things that a faith community, or one of the ways that a faith community generates economic activity for its local community is by hosting events. So let's say there's a wedding that's going to take place at that church. How much economic value does that wedding generate? So we use the Ontario Department of Tourism, whatever it's called, and according to their numbers, the average value would be $20 per attendee. So we're talking about things like people getting married. They're going to hire musicians. They're going to hire, florists, all those sort of things. There's going to be people that come to the community that don't live there, so they're to attend the wedding. So they're going to eat in restaurants. They're going to put gas in their car. They're going to have hotel costs and so on. So that averages to about $20 per attendee at an event. So it's by computing all those individual things that we end up with an estimated value overall for that faith congregation.
What about property taxes that a municipality could apply to the land upon which churches sit?
That's right. So that would be one of the computations that we did on the other side of the ledger as to like foregone revenue. So we used Kitchener as an example in our report. We used the tax tables, the municipal tax tables, how much property tax would be charged that particular community, that land and the property that's on it. So we get that from provincial and municipal data.
So in the report, Lisa, you look at those net positive contributions of more than $16 billion. What would happen to that number if indeed taxes were applied to churches? Right.
So we theorize about that in our report. And we think that it's reasonable to assume that the positive contribution economically would decline by at least 10% and probably more. So when you think about it, if faith congregations were no longer tax exempt, some of the donations to that congregation would decline. I mean, the reason that the tax code provides tax exemptions to incentivize, right, certain kinds of activity. So there would be some percent of the giving that members of that congregation give to that church that would be reduced. So the church would have less revenue. Also, the revenue that it did still have, it would need to allocate slightly differently. They would need to start paying taxes. So some of the money that the church takes in would have to go to paying taxes instead of what it is currently spending it on, which could be anything from re-roofing the church, which generates economic benefit, to, contributing to a food bank or hosting a food bank or all the other kind of programs and services. So the combination of those two factors, we think it's reasonable to think that if the contribution would decline by at least 10 and probably more than 10%, which means that, in fact, if churches lost their tax-exempt status, society would be worse off than before, not better off, just economically speaking. So this is just a socioeconomic lens that we're applying here. We're not considering all the other aspects of life, but just economically, it would be actually worse off. So if you want to make an economic argument, preserving these tax exemptions is the way to go.
Acknowledging that this is an assumption, but based on declining attendance at churches, is there any sort of tipping point in the future where it would not be economically viable, or it would not be economically valuable to continue with the tax exempt status for churches? If the attendance declines to a certain amount, do we kind of tip the other way here in this analysis?
I don't think so. I mean, the studies that we've done already have taken the numbers we report are averages of a whole lot of individual congregations that we studied, and they're of various sizes. So we've already factored in the churches that are very small and have 40 members or something, and we also have churches in the study that are very large, with several hundreds or even thousands of attendees. So we're already using numbers that I think account for small congregations.
Lisa, it's very interesting research, and I appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thanks very much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Dr. Lisa Richmond is the Vice President of Research at Cardus, a nonpartisan think tank based in Hamilton. And their analysis shows that tax exemptions for religious institutions benefit us all. In fact, according to the report, there is a net positive socioeconomic contribution to Canadian society of about $16.5 billion. And this number would drop if the tax-exempt status for churches was changed. You heard at the beginning of that conversation Bill Maher from Real Talk and his take on the billions of dollars of property and assets that churches have accumulated, tax scot-free in Bill Maher's words. This has come up on our show from time to time, especially in times like this. Did you just hear what Mike Eppel said in the 9:30 update when it comes to our inflation numbers and how much property taxes have increased? Oh, lucky us. I'm sure municipal councillors are just rolling their eyes as if we weren't shaking our fists at enough clouds lately when it comes to the taxes that we're paying. You find out that a contributing factor to inflation in October was a 6.5% average increase in Canada to property taxes. But what if those taxes were spread out a little further and applied to churches as well? As I mentioned, it's come up on this show, particularly in these economic times. What do you think of this? Is it time that we began to tax churches? Let me know your thoughts. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
The positive contribution economically would decline by at least 10% and probably more. If churches lost their tax-exempt status, society would be worse off than before, not better off, just economically speaking. So this is just an socioeconomic lens that we're applying here. We're not considering all the other aspects of life, but just economically, it would be actually worse off. So if you want to make an economic argument, preserving these tax exemptions is the way to go.
Dr. Lisa Richmond, Vice President of Research at Cardus, which is a nonpartisan think tank based in Hamilton, did an analysis, and we played for you at the beginning of that conversation a clip from Real Time with Bill Maher, the HBO show. And it was actually a clip from several years ago where Bill riffed on this whole idea of allowing churches to be tax exempt. And he looked at a church on a street in New York City that was directly across from a retail store. So on one side of the street in the retail store, you pay taxes. On the other side of the street, you do not. And he suggests, especially with a growing number of people who either just don't attend a church officially or who believe themselves agnostic, atheist, non-religious entirely, that increasing group is paying to subsidize, in Bill Maher's words, the hobby of people who attend church on Sunday. I don't know that I'd take it quite that far, but you get the point, obviously. And in this day and age, when we are facing increased costs, and we just heard from the inflation numbers that property tax increases on average of more than 6% are contributing to inflation in October, one can't help but wonder what would happen if we spread things out a little bit further and included churches in our tax roll. According to Cardis, there is a net positive socioeconomic contribution to Canadian society of more than $16 billion because churches remain tax exempt. Russell sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. Absolutely, we should be taxing churches. Nobody should get a free ride, especially when the claim cannot be proven with solid evidence. Let's go to the phones, hear from you. Andre, good morning.
I sound like Grant, eh?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I thought, wait a minute, is Grant on the phone or is it Andre on the phone? Andre, what do you think? Should we tax churches?
Disgusting.
It's disgusting to tax churches?
Yes.
Why?
It's a punch in the stomach, Mike. You know, like I'm not going to go back and to make it quick. It's just, to me, they're there to help. So why take some more money? To me, it reminds me of King and Queen, and we need more money. So let's take from the poor. Let's take from churches. Like, come on, Mike. Seriously, like, I think we should bring mayors less council, one tier, and that's how we can get so much more money. I believe to let the churches alone and let them help and support the community. That's what I believe, Mike.
All right, Andre, appreciate the call. If it's one thing I would say about churches, or if I was going to describe churches in one way, that way would not be poor in any way. There may be declining revenues because of declining attendance for sure, but in general, churches are not crying poor, let's just say. One thing, though, when Andre talks about how churches do help and can continue to help, I'm a big believer in that, and it occurs to me, I think about this quite a bit, actually, how churches are such central features of our neighborhoods, and we recognize that with our roots in this community and so many others, but you see so many churches in a city, each kind of distinct to a neighborhood, because that's how our neighborhoods grew, and churches were a central feature of life in neighborhoods in generations gone by. So much happened through the church. One thing that I would like to see more of, and we're starting to see some of it, is these churches sitting on relatively large parcels of land, and they are big buildings on those relatively large parcels of land. I would like to see some reimagination of the church building itself or where members congregate, and then some room for additional housing to support the neighborhood today, because we're in such need of it. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Couple minutes away from 10, your update in the 570 News Center. Let's get back to the phones, hear more from you on the idea of taxing churches or not. Mary, what do you think?
Oh, well, I think it should stay as it is, and not tax them. They do a great amount of good in the community, and by volunteers, they're not getting paid. And my church had to cry poor, and we sold it. And I felt really bad about that. You know, we were poor.
Your church was poor or you were poor?
No, our church had to close down because we couldn't support it. We didn't have enough members.
Yeah, see, and that's one of the things. That's one of the reasons I wonder, though, Mary, if we don't have to evolve in our way of thinking about taxation too. Well,
anyway, I want to continue. 2 Lutheran churches in Kitchener are putting, I don't know if it's geared to income, but low-cost housing on their properties.
I love seeing it. I think it's a great idea.
St. Peter's and historic St. Paul's. Historic St. Paul is a corner of Church and Queen, and they used to run, the people could come in, and of course they were close to the street people. They could get clothing for nothing. They could get piles of stuff and food for nothing. And that was a real good thing. And one other thing I want to mention.
I got 10 seconds left.
Okay. Through the COVID, a church lady, wasn't my church lady, called me a couple of times, and I'm sure she did it for other people, to see how possibly the senior was doing throughout COVID and being lonely. And some of the things you can't buy.
Great points, Mary. And it's true that there is a social connection in that congregation for sure. This is the Mike Farwell Show. This is Restorative Justice Week, and here to talk more about what the week means and how we are marking it here in the region of Waterloo is Kate Crozier, who's the Interim Executive Director at Community Justice Initiatives. Kate, good morning.
Good morning. Good to be with you.
It's great to have you here to talk about something that is so important and in so many ways pioneered right here in the region of Waterloo when it comes to restorative justice. For those who may not know, can you give us a little background, a better understanding of what we mean when we talk about restorative justice?
Yeah, happy to. Restorative justice is a way that lots of cultures historically have addressed the harms that have happened in their community. And it's by directing the people directly involved in finding what their needs are and repairing the harm that's been done. And so in a restorative justice perspective, we really center the person who's been harmed and ask them, what does healing mean to you? What does justice mean to you? And we also work with the person who's caused harm to see what their capacity and ability is to meet those needs. And in this way, we build really meaningful accountability. We change long-term behaviors. And we have people who've been harmed who feel that their needs have been met and can move forward from this trauma. That's got to be, just from the outside looking in, Kate, one of the most difficult, if not incredible, parts of restorative justice, that the person to whom the harm was done comes away feeling as though they're in a good place. Yeah, that was what's so incredibly special about this work. For a lot of folks who end up using our criminal legal system, they'll share that they felt that, in fact, none of their needs were met, that they were harmed through the system. It took so long. They weren't asked what they needed. And quite often, they don't even get the outcomes they were hoping for. Courts are backlogged. The threshold of proof can make things very difficult. And so restorative justice moves away from the onus of proof and saying, what do you need? And then we can cater our responses around those unique needs. So it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all. Each person that comes to us, we're curious about what justice means to them. And then it's our work to figure out how to put that together and help them through that. How do we mark Restorative Justice Week here in the region through your work at Community Justice Initiatives? Well, there's a few ways. The first way, it's 50 years since the Elmira case here until 2024. It was 1974. The pretty infamous Elmira case occurred where two young men caused a lot of harm to properties in the town of Elmira. And Mark Yancey helped them address those harms directly with the people in the community that were impacted. So here we are 50 years later. And importantly, restorative justice work is about community and for community. What I love about the way CJI practices restorative justice is in this deprofessionalized model. We train and supervise and support community volunteers to do this work, and they can, and they do it beautifully. So right now we have 185 volunteers in our community that are doing this work for this community. And so we invite people to follow along in what CJI does. If you're on social media, follow us and get a sense of our values, our practices, and the programs that we have. And you'll see that we need you. We can't do this work without you, whether that is bringing us into the places where you are, where you need some support in doing things more restoratively to address the conflicts and harms in the places you go, we rely on the community to financially support the work that we do. We aren't well funded by government, and we need you to help do some of the work that we do. Be group facilitators, be mediators, be mentors. There's all sorts of ways to get involved.
How can we get in touch and connect in that way, Kate?
Yeah, our website is one way. We're just revising our website, and we'll have a new website out in a week or two. And so there's lots of options there. There's a button that says, I want to volunteer with us. If you go onto Facebook or Instagram, you'll find us under A Just Community. And I also welcome people to go on our website and look at our programs. And attached to each of those programs is a face and a name, and those are our staff folks who would be really happy to respond to your emails or phone calls about your curiosities about what we do.
Kate, I really appreciate the work that you do at Community Justice Initiatives and appreciate your time on the show this morning. Thank you very much for being here.
Oh, thanks, Mike. Appreciate it too.
Kate Crozier, you too. Bye-bye. Kate is the interim executive director at Community Justice Initiatives. I can't believe now 50 years since the Elmira case that Kate made reference to. If you have not heard about it or you haven't seen the film that is made of the case, just Google it. It screened at the Princess in Waterloo some time ago. But even if you just look up the Elmira case, and it was Mark Yancey, as you heard Kate mention, a constable with Waterloo Regional Police who responded to this pretty significant case of vandalism in Elmira, and Constable Yancey at the time just recognized that there might be a better way of dealing with these young people who were involved in this spree of vandalism. And such the idea of restorative justice in this community was born. And I think it's important to note that it was a police officer responding to a call for service that sparked this idea in our community. And I remember successive police chiefs, going back to Larry Graville, talking about it, his belief in it. Restorative justice here in the community. Chief Mark Crowell to this day continues along with that belief that it doesn't just have to be incarceration. So Community Justice Initiatives marks Restorative Justice Week here in Canada. Some great work going on in our community. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I cannot tell a lie. I cannot get enough of this guy sitting across from me in the studio right now. And not just because he brought a nice hot cup of coffee with him. No. Buddy, I'm going to see you tonight. I'm so stoked for that game at the Memorial Auditorium.
Yeah, it's always fun. And what better way on a Tuesday night than to play those guys from down the highway?
Oh, it's going to be a great game. Craig Campbell is with me. He is the executive director of Rangers Reach. We will see one another at the rink tonight, but you're here this morning to talk about a number of just incredible things, not the least of which is the Leading by Example program. What a perfect name for the program, because you, through Rangers Reach and the Kitchener Rangers as an organization, are leading by example with a whopper, a $50,000 donation to the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region.
It is so important. The work that they're doing there in their Leading by Example program and their Male Allies program is unbelievable. And I had the pleasure of working with Carly Doucette there and lots of communication with her. And they wanted to tailor their Leading by Example program down to a younger age group. And so last winter, amidst all the other things that were going on for me personally, I managed to get my team, the kids that I coached that were 13, plus two other teams from Kitchener involved in a pilot program of that Leading by Example program. And the results were just watching kids learn and understand what's consent. And I think to get them that information, I wouldn't necessarily call it training. I call it education, experience education in understanding what consent is and all the things that are around that. And I think it's really important given the current climate, especially surrounding junior hockey in Ontario and Canada. I think we have an obligation to help support these types of programs. And I think they're important programs for our youth to participate in.
And I remember reading about you and seeing your picture in the Globe and Mail when a story came out about that and your hockey team. But you just touched on something, Craig, that I think is important here. Yes, your hockey team, because you're a hockey coach, could participate in that. But you just talked about young people, not necessarily athletes, although with Rangers Reach, we're very much connected to hockey. But we're talking about the next generation learning these important things.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's just taken for granted that kids will understand or know. But I think giving them concrete examples that they can relate to and that are not necessarily sexual assault based. They're just real life experience based on what is consent. And I think it's important. And, you know, for me, when my board was considering this grant to Sexual Assault Support Center, you know, I advocated strongly for it because I'd seen the impact that it had on 3 teams and the feedback that I had from other coaches that were involved in the pilot, and they were run separately, couldn't not speak up. And I think if more people could speak up, I think, you know, we have a chance to change the culture in hockey. Not just hockey, in all sport and life. I think we have, as adults, you and I, similar age, we have an obligation to try and do things to help the younger generation, right? And give them the tools. So that's what we're doing. And as executive director at Rangers Reach, I'm extremely proud that we were able to announce this commitment to them. And, you know, our hope is, and through the Rangers, their hope is that maybe leading by example for us translates into other organizations around the Ontario Hockey League, leading by example in their communities and understanding this is important and that they'll contribute and help get this education out.
Would love to see that spread in just that way. It's an excellent point and an excellent use of the platform from both the organization, the Kitchener Rangers as a hockey club, and Rangers Reach as that foundational arm. Speaking of the $50,000 donation yesterday to Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region, deadline fast approaching for grant applications.
Grant application deadline tomorrow, 5 p.m. So information can be found on our website, rangersreach.com/apply. We're in youth and amateur sport. Any activity that affects youth and amateur sport, feel free to go and have a perusal of our webpage. Get that application in. It's not too cumbersome. 2 grant streams available. There's the A category, which is up to $5,000, and the B category up to $15,000. So should be approximately $100,000 total dollars to grant. You know, we're in the phase now where when you buy your 50-50 ticket and someone goes home with a big prize, we have the money on the other side that's going into our community, and that $100,000 for the community grants piece is important, just as our Sexual Assault Support Center grant. Plus, we have some other announcements that'll be coming in the very near future that are important in our community as well.
All right, so rangersreach.com/apply. Deadline tomorrow at 5 to get those grant applications in. And I've gone through them too, thanks to Craig. I've seen what they look like. He's right. It's not overly cumbersome, so you still got time to put that application together and get in on those 2 streams of funding for $100,000. You mentioned where the money comes from, which is the draws. That's why I see you every time there's a game. I can't wait. I'm glad you're here, but I can't wait to see you again tonight to buy my 50-50 ticket. And something pretty special gets underway tonight.
Well, sometimes, you know, we try to think outside the box sometimes, and sometimes to my own detriment. It makes me so busy and you can't catch your breath.
I've got an idea.
Yeah, and that usually translates into, oh my goodness, right? And maybe I'll use other language, not on the radio. But we are kicking off today. We actually kicked off this morning at 9 o'clock, our regular game day 50-50. So with London in town tonight and a huge crowd expected. Huge crowd usually translates into huge jackpot. And we just thought, looking at current events in our community, we all have seen the news about the House of Friendship and their Christmas hamper program being overwhelmed with registrations. And so we, in the spirit of, hey, we can do something, have started the holiday bonus jackpot that will start tonight. You can purchase your game day 50-50. Then you have the option to purchase an additional 50-50 ticket that will create its own separate jackpot. It will accumulate until Friday, December 20th. That's the last Rangers home game before the holiday break. And on that Friday the 20th, we'll draw that bonus jackpot in addition to our game day that day. So we have this accumulating prize that's going to go over the next 7 Rangers games over the next month. And it was pretty popular in the playoffs. After just 5 games in the playoffs, it was an extra $15,000 that went out to somebody. So again, it's the backside that's important for us. We think that we can do something to help House of Friendship feed those people at Christmas time, and this is a great way to do it. So Rangers5050.com. You can get in on the regular raffle for as little as $5. The bonus raffle starts at $10. But we're gonna have a great time with it.
So for each of the next 7 games, beginning tonight, there will be the regular game day jackpot. It will be a big one tonight. I know we're going to have a nice number, but at the end of that, on December the 20th, final game before Christmas, the extra draw, and half of that is going to go to the House of Friendship to support that food hamper program.
Correct. And the number that we...
You have good ideas, Craig.
I try. The number that we have put on our website that you see when you go into Rangers5050.com, those are the winner prizes. That you don't get half of that. That is your prize if you are the winner. So we're pretty excited about it. And, of note, when you go to our sales page, if you're unsure about the bonus jackpot, if you just scroll down a touch, we have done a great infographic that says how to play and how to do the whole process.
You're using this just to remind me, right? Because I struggle so much. I'm Krager, I can't. I need help.
Yeah, and even in-house, you'll be able to do it seamlessly through a seller in-house, and I'm excited. I'm going to see. I'm not going to see your favorite team, but I am going to the building that your favorite team plays in tomorrow to meet up with MLSE folks. They have some things that they're doing that we would like to implement here. So I'm going to go down and see how that flow works and make sure that it will suit our selling environment. And again, we're always looking for ways to improve, enhance, and bring something really great for our fans, with the whole idea in mind that it really creates more on the back end for our community. And we do everything based on what does it look like for our community.
Well, and in the very recent past, as of yesterday, $50,000 for the Sexual Assault Support Center of Waterloo Region. So a terrific input for our community through Rangers Reach and those draws we have so much fun playing. Can't wait for tonight, Krager. Go get your game face on.
I'm hoping that in one of the next 7 games, I'm writing you a check. I think you've bought enough tickets. It's your time.
I don't even... Have you noticed? I've actually told myself, Farwell, just stop complaining. I know where it's going to a good cause. I love these conversations to remind us, but you're right. I'm overdue, buddy. Let's go. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Craig Campbell, Executive Director of Rangers Reach, joining us on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Time just flies when you're having fun, and we are going to take you from the stage to the screen right here in our own backyard in the next 30 minutes. Stay with us. The Mike Farwell Show continues on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, I promised in this half hour, we're going to take you from the stage to the screen. So let's begin on the stage in Cambridge specifically. And the Cambridge community players are about to stage Ben Crocker's Cinderella, the pantomime. Emily Mew is the director of the production and joins us on the show this morning. Emily, good morning.
Good morning.
And along with Emily, Sarah Adam is here. Sarah will play the fairy godmother in the show. Sarah, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Emily, let's start with you. What's it like staging a production with the Cambridge community players?
Oh, it is so much fun. A lot of work goes into it, but we have a huge amount of volunteers, a huge group of people who dedicate their time and come together to put on a fantastic production, and it just makes it so fun for everyone involved.
What is the Cambridge Theatre for the Arts like as a venue?
Oh, it is great. We are so fortunate and lucky to have a venue like the Cambridge Arts Theatre. it's the perfect size, not too big, not too small. It has great equipment, and it's great to give people in our community the feel of what it's like to perform in a professional theater.
Sarah, what about you? When did the acting bug first bite?
So this is a fairly new passion for me. I actually hadn't done a show before the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I made a commitment to myself that I was going to audition for a show, and I did. And I did my first musical in February of 2023, and this is my 6th show since then, my 4th musical. So definitely got bit by the bug during the pandemic.
That's amazing. You're a grizzled veteran now with 6 shows under your belt, eh?
Sometimes it feels like that, yeah.
What was it that made you make that commitment to yourself?
I'd always wanted to perform, and as a small child, I had done a lot of choirs and ensembles and a little bit of performing. I actually auditioned for a show at what was then the Galt Little Theatre, and it's now the Cambridge Community Players. I auditioned for Little Women 20-something years ago, and I did not get a role. So I'm so happy to be able to come full circle and perform on that stage. And so that's really what led me.
I love it. Good for you. That's a really cool story. So
thank you.
This time around, I mean, we all know the story of Cinderella. The fairy godmother is a pretty important role here, Sarah. Like, you've got to, work a little bit of magic, almost literally, in the role as fairy godmother.
Yeah, it is. And I will say I don't have to take it on alone. I am fairy godmother number 2, so I get to do it with a wonderful actor. Her name is Terry. So we are both fairy godmothers. So our Cinderella is lucky enough to have 2 fairy godmothers. So I get to do this role with another actor, which is phenomenal. So fun to play off of her. We've got a really fun dynamic. I'm kind of the fairy godmother in training and learning a lot from my fairy godmother number 1.
That's terrific. Emily, what kind of work goes into getting us to this point where we're at opening week? Can you take us through the process of rehearsals and even auditions and everything getting us up to this point?
Yeah, I can. So obviously, we start with, if you go right back, you start to submitting the show, and then the play committee at Cambridge Community Players decide who they want to direct and put on the shows that year. So then I got selected. So back in August, we did auditions. We had over 40 people come out for auditions, and then we cast based off of that. We started rehearsals at the end of August. We do 3 rehearsals a week, and then during that rehearsal period, we work on costumes, we work on sets, we work on lighting, we work on the sound, so sound effects, music, microphones, all of that kind of stuff. And then as of yesterday, we went into what we call our tech week. So we were getting all the lights and the sound and everything ready on the stage and running the show. And now we're into tech week. And tonight we have what we call our tech dress rehearsal. So it's the first time the cast will be in their costumes. And we're ready to open on Friday.
How do you feel today, 3 days away from the curtain raising, Emily? Like, is there any anxious feelings as you look forward to that?
I think any director is a little bit anxious a few days before their show opens, obviously because you're putting your own creative envision on this show, so you're hoping that the audience is going to like what you've done with it. But I'm very happy. It's in a very good place. It's just getting better and better, and I think the audiences are absolutely going to love it.
I love how you touched on your kind of fingerprints on a story that we all know so well. Does that make you nervous?
Yeah, it does. I, from the beginning, had a pretty clear artistic image of what I want. And I just hope it comes across in the way that I planned it to, and I hope the audiences enjoy it.
I have no doubt that they will. There's something so special and personal about the theater. And when we're talking about the beautiful venue of the Cambridge Arts Theater, I think that just shines through. What about for you, Sarah, when that curtain rises on Friday night? What you're thinking about that today? What do you think about?
I can't wait. Like Emily said, we've been working on this show since the end of August. So to finally be able to share this beautiful show with an audience is going to be so much fun. I think our audiences are in for a real treat. We've got full musical numbers, full dance numbers. Emily has had a very clear vision for this show, and she has set the bar very high for all of us. So we're doing choreography that probably some of us didn't imagine that we'd be able to do. But when we're working with a director and a choreographer who believes in us and can see that we can do things that even we might not be able to believe that we can do, there's so much pride in putting the show together. So I cannot wait for that curtain to open on Friday.
Okay, so we know the curtain rises on Friday. Can you give us a rundown of when people can see the show and how we can, most importantly, get our tickets to be in the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So we open Friday. We run from November 22nd to December 1st. There is a mix of evening shows and matinees. So each weekend we have a Friday night, a Saturday night, and then a Saturday afternoon and a Sunday afternoon. If you're interested in going, though, I would strongly encourage you to get your tickets now, because I looked and I think one of our shows has one single seat left. So seats are flying. There's only handfuls left. And we would love to see everybody there.
That must be why the website gave me a little bit of trouble when I was checking it out this morning. But we'll make sure people can find those seats, CambridgeCommunityPlayers.com. Sarah, Emily, thank you so much for sharing your passion with us this morning. And break a leg, as they say, when that curtain rises on Friday night.
Thank you, Mike.
Sarah Adam and Emily Mew joining us on the show. Emily is the director of Cinderella, which opens Friday at the Cambridge Arts Theatre. Sarah Adam is going to play Fairy Godmother #2, Sharing the Magical Load. Again, curtain rises on Friday. CambridgeCommunityPlayers.com is where you can get your tickets. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I promised in this 30 minutes we would take you from the stage to the screen. So opening Friday at the Cambridge Arts Theatre, on stage with the Cambridge Community Players, Cinderella. Now we take you to the screen, specifically the Apollo Cinema in downtown Kitchener. And a really provocative what if question is being asked. If with 2 F's for Impact Film Festival. And Mats Van Cleef, who's the Director of Operational Strategy with Enviro Stewards, joins me in studio. Great to see you, Mats. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Let's start with the T-shirt that you're wearing that is promoting Safe Water Social Ventures and 20th anniversary for Safe Water Social Ventures. Now, that's incredible. It feels like we blinked and 20 years has gone by.
Yeah, it's amazing the vision that our founder, Bruce Taylor, had to set up this organization just several years after starting our company, Enviro Stewards, taking some of the profit from our corporate work to put it into development work in East Africa. He started in South Sudan, and it's transitioned into Uganda and the Congo, and providing safe water for people that are most in need, people in rural communities that don't have access to safe water infrastructure, no running water. And we're empowering the people there to set up their own businesses so that they can provide home water filters to those people that really need it.
It is incredible work. I've had the chance to see some of what the operation looks like, and it's fantastic. So where did the idea for the Impact Film Festival come from?
So already for a long time, we've had an annual fundraiser to raise awareness and funds to help subsidize some of the filters that the local people there might not be able to fully afford. We always encourage them to put forward some of their own money so they feel like they have ownership of the filters. But the Impact Film Festival started 3 years ago, kind of coming out of the pandemic when we didn't have the chance to meet in person, to be able to share good stories and including the work that we do as Safe Water Social Ventures with the community. During the pandemic, that was a great thing to be able to do virtually, and we're really happy to be able to do that in person again now at the Apollo Cinema.
So what kinds of stories will we be able to see on Thursday night?
Yeah, there's a lot of great local stories and international. They're all kind of social purpose organizations. One example is the Raw Carrot Soup Company based out of Paris, Ontario, and they provide employment for people with disabilities that would otherwise be on ODSP and have a real hard time finding employment. And as that social venture, Rebecca has provided an employment opportunity while creating a lot of really good engagement with other organizations. And she'll be there hosting her soup, for example, at the cinema in parallel to showing our film.
That's fantastic. I love it. And so how do you bring, like, everybody comes together at the theater for a screening and the opportunity, by the sounds of it, like I hadn't heard of the Paris company until just now. So
yeah, there will be booths set up with some information about how the biosand filter works, for example, that actually gives people safe water in their home. It's a filter that can filter 40 to 60 liters of water per day. And it's something that they just have in their house. So there'll be a demo there that people can see how it actually works. It's very robust technology, open source, so anyone can pull it off the internet. But we really teach the business skills so people can bring it to their community. So there's booths like that where you can learn a bit about what the different groups are doing. And we're excited to show the films so that people can actually see what's happening in the community where it's being impacted.
Absolutely. So this is taking place at the Apollo, as we mentioned, on Thursday night. Yeah, the 21st is Thursday. Yeah. How can we get involved?
You can register for the event. There's still tickets for the free film festival. There's no cost to joining for the films. Or you can walk in. It starts 7 o'clock registration, and the films start at 7:30. But I encourage people to register beforehand on our website, swsv.org. SWSV stands for Safe Water Social Ventures. You'll be able to see past films on there and the registration link for joining us at the Apollo Cinema.
swsv.org. The Apollo is a great spot for this, too.
Yeah.
It really is.
They show so many great films, and they host more events where they really kind of pursue the social purpose of organizations.
Exactly. You can see it's almost part of their mission statement at the theater because this is the perfect venue for it.
Yeah.
So swsv.org, you can register, you can see those past films and join on Thursday evening. And you said it's free to attend.
Yes, yeah. We just want to spread the word of all these organizations doing good work. We encourage donations for the projects, but it's definitely no expectation. Everyone will come at it from kind of different areas in their life, and even just being aware, knowing what other organizations in the community are doing, I think already adds so much value. We heard the story earlier in Elmira, how just a change of mindset with restorative justice can really impact the community. So I think spreading the word has the most impact first and foremost.
There's no question. Last time I saw you was at our Ideas building in downtown Kitchener, the SDG.
Yeah.
And I love it, the Sustainable Development Goals, and I get to learn more. And this is an opportunity just for that outreach into the community more broadly so we can understand all of these cool things that are going on.
Yeah, so many great things going on.
What drew you to this work, Matt?
Actually, before I even started working at EnviroStewards, there was an opportunity to volunteer for the Safe Water Social Ventures. So that's where I actually started my journey with EnviroStewards. And it's just such a impactful way to touch people's lives on an individual basis. We often kind of deal with these very systemic issues of climate change, and it doesn't feel very, very tangible. And this is something where, filter by filter, you're directly impacting people's lives. I had an opportunity to go to Uganda 2 years ago and sat on the back of a motorcycle on this bouncy dirt road to get to this local village where people were still just grabbing water from a stagnant water source, where just a couple meters down there was a pig in the water kind of bathing. And in the past, people would have been drinking that water just straight from that water source. And I got to sit across from a family, Opeja and Agnes Oriyama, with their 2 kids. And they had gone through this. They had been drinking that water. And as a result, their kids had gotten an intestinal parasite and went to hospital. And they spent 9 months there, spent a lot of money on treatment. And after those 9 months, even after all that treatment, 2 of their kids passed away and one survived. And afterwards, that family started to use biosand filter water, didn't have any issues anymore. They became the biggest advocate for people in their village. They shared with 6 other homes in their local village so that they're getting safe water now. And it's those kinds of impacts where you actually, one starfish at a time, are able to really make an impact in people's lives. And that's why it's so meaningful to me, and I think to a lot of the people on our team as well.
That is an incredible story, and I think just a small glimpse hearing about what we'll be seeing at the film festival on Thursday night. Mats, thanks so much for the work that you do and for making the time to come into the studio this morning.
Thanks for the opportunity, Mike. Appreciate it.
Mats Van Cleef joining us. He's the Director of Operational Strategy at Enviro Stewards. This Thursday at the Apollo in downtown Kitchener. It's the Impact Film Festival. You can register at SWSV for Safe Water Social Ventures. Safe Water Social Ventures, SWSV.org. Join them on Thursday night for the Impact Film Festival. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. There is a new political party in Canada that bills itself as the centrist alternative. You've got the Liberals and NDP on the left. You've got the Conservatives on the right. Are any of those parties close enough to the center, or is there room for this centrist alternative? We'll find out when we meet the party's interim leader coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Look, you know how this works, right? If it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us. And sometimes you use our Talkback Hour every day from noon until 1 to let us know things that are interesting to you or concerning to you. Sometimes I get emails to Mike at 570news.com, and that's where I got an email last week from a resident of Waterloo who said he attended the founding convention of the Canadian Future Party in Ottawa, and while there, met several other party members from the region. Thought if enough people from the region of Waterloo traveled to Ottawa for the founding convention of the Canadian Future Party, maybe there's enough interest in this community to talk more about it. And so we do that as we're joined by the leader of said party, Dominic Cardy, joins the show. Dominic, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on the show this morning.
It's great to have you here. What is or who is the Canadian Future Party?
The Canadian Future Party is a lot of people who've had background in politics in some cases frustration with politics and wanted to get involved. I'm a former cabinet minister from New Brunswick, have a long experience in politics, have got around the table helping me out. Former Harper cabinet minister Peter Kent, former NDP member of parliament Denis Blanchette, range of people from all the parties who've got different organization and leadership experiences. And we're coming together because inside all of those parties over the last few years, we've all been going, there has to be something better than this. There has to be something better than this slide towards further right-wing and left-wing extremism, where more and more people are trying to tell us what we have to do in our personal lives and aren't dealing with the major problems of government, making sure democracy delivers, our healthcare system works, we can defend our country. So the Canadian Future Party is about reforming our institutions, recognizing that we need institutions, unlike Mr. Poilievre saying we can get rid of the gatekeepers. We need better gatekeepers. We need to admit that our country's got problems, unlike Mr. Trudeau, who just goes around apologizing for them. We think we need to use evidence-based, science-based approaches to decide what government should do, what it shouldn't do, get government out of the business that it shouldn't be in, invest more in the areas where government investment makes a difference. And again, really just focus on making democracy deliver, getting away from the rage farming and that drive towards extremism that I think is making more and more Canadians really uncomfortable when they see our national leaders sliding off to the left and to the right.
So where are those traditional big three parties, if you will, lacking? The Liberals, the NDP, and the Conservatives?
I think part of the problem is that our parties have sort of stopped doing their job. You need your parties to be the sort of filtration point between the perspectives of the broad public and then the decisions that are made in government, because you can only decide to do one thing at a time in government, so you have to have a filtration system. The big parties have, I think, fallen into the trap, the addiction of social media, where the leaders get to ignore the party, ignore their caucus, ignore the cabinet in some cases with premiers and prime ministers, and communicate directly out to the public, which sounds great, except for in the end, what's happening is it's not reinforcing the power of the public, it's reinforcing the power of the leaders. So we're seeing a drive towards more and more strength in leaders' offices. There's one change that, there's a cultural change that's needed to move away from a social media dominance. And my party is trying to really put the emphasis on face-to-face meetings. Of course, we're going to use the technology and the tools, and we're a party that believes in technology as a way of solving problems, including things like climate change. So we're not naive about technology, but there's also something that comes from humans working together and sharing ideas that I think we've really gotten away from, and it's causing our leaders to become ever more disconnected. But there's another thing that a small reform that if any of our national leaders wanted to make this change tomorrow, the British House of Commons, MPs vote against their parties all the time. All that's required is leaders saying that they're going to treat their MPs as politicians in between elections, which means that the MPs can bring concerns from the public back to the leaders. Right now, it's a one-way street. The leader talks, the MPs can pass on the message. The public don't really have a say. The MPs don't have a say. Let the MPs work with their leaders, make the leaders have to lobby their members of parliament in their own caucuses to get their support for bills. If you do that, you suddenly start to see the voices of the public being heard back in the corridors of power again. It's a change that could be made with no money expended, no legal changes required. All it requires is Mr. Trudeau, Mr. Poilievre, Mr. Singh to run their parties that way. They're not going to, because it's easier to have a party that's driven entirely from a leader's office. But we think if you have an approach based on evidence and baking in that need for consultation into the party's DNA from the moment it's born, which is what we've definitely done, that can make a real difference. And we're hoping we can change Canadian politics by getting some sensible ideas back on the table in the middle of politics and not off exploring the dirty corners of the political world, which are increasingly dangerous. And I think Canadians can see that.
So would your party then, in its constitution, for example, commit to not centralizing power in the leader's office?
That's in our constitution, and we've gone further than that. We've got a couple of other things that I do not understand why other parties haven't done it. We are the only party that mandates that to vote in an internal party election to help choose the candidates to become members of parliament, a huge important job that parties have, that we are requiring that all members be Canadian citizens if they're going to vote. You can be a permanent resident and be a member of the party, but you can't vote in those internal elections. That's a privilege reserved for citizens. That's one example. We've also got it baked in that 10 years after the election of the party leader into the House of Commons, they have to step down as leader. That I think we've seen with Mr. Trudeau, with a number of provincial premiers, and with Mr. Biden down south, what happens when leaders don't get the message that it's time for them to go. And there's always that natural tendency, all humans have, that you're in a job for a while, you get comfortable, you get a little bit stale, you stop listening to new ideas, you stop listening to new people. Making sure that there's a automatic refresh date is, I think, a way that we can keep our parties refreshed. And I think that if the other parties wanted to follow this option, I think that would improve our politics. And that's part of what we're trying to do. We want to win the election for sure, but we also just want to try and bring the debate back to, for example, how do we get our defense spending up to 2%? My party is the only party that's committed to that at a time when your headlines were talking about American missiles landing in Russia. There's also news right now of a Chinese ship that's been cutting underwater internet cables with European warships going out to respond as we're talking right now. The world is in conflict, and our leaders are not telling us the truth about these overlapping crises that are coming towards us. And we're doing nothing to prepare our military or prepare our economy or our population for that. So if we can start talking about more real ideas again, rather than our politicians spending another summer like they did this year going on about recyclable Tim Hortons coffee cup lids. Yeah, I think that Canadian politics might be improved by a bit of a reconnection to reality. How do we get our healthcare system to work again? All these different areas. You're going to see some concrete and fairly radical proposals from my party based on evidence, because I think that's what people across the political spectrum are calling out for right now, is we see more and more rage farming from Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Trudeau, and really not a lot of attention to the issues that matter to Canadians.
What makes you think, Mr. Carty, that the Canadian Future Party can succeed in gaining traction and establishing itself as a new political party here in Canada where others have failed?
Well, that's up to Canadians, and I am both, I think, hopefully pretty humble about this and pretty optimistic. I think there's a tiny chance of this project succeeding. But if your listeners like the idea of a party that's based on evidence and science, that isn't going to say that you have to make a choice between a party on the one side that says it's fiscally responsible, but then is going to control your personal life, or on the other side, say that it's going to allow you personal freedoms, but is going to be completely fiscally incontinent when it comes to managing our finances. But you don't have to make that choice. You can choose a party that's fiscally responsible and doesn't care who you love, doesn't want to interfere in your personal life. I think there's an appetite for that. In the end, all that me and my team can do is put it out there. We're building EDAs across the country right now. I'm in Vancouver today, heading to Alberta tomorrow. There's a lot of interest across the country. If Canadians want this, there's a political vehicle there for them. If they don't, then I will go off and do something else interesting with my life. But I think that in a democracy, all you can do if you think there's a problem is stand up and try and offer some solutions. That's what we're trying to do, and I hope we can make a difference and make a positive difference too.
Will you run a full slate of candidates in the next election?
Yeah, we, as I was mentioning, we've got some fairly high standards for our candidates in terms of both the folks who get to choose our candidates, and we also have the strongest vetting process of any Canadian political party. So my focus is on the quality rather than the quantity, absolutely aiming for as close to a full slate as we can get, and if we get there, that's great. But what I'm looking for is people who are ready to be part of a team that can contribute meaningfully to managing this enormous, incredibly complex, incredibly fragile country with all of the different stresses and crises that are currently engulfing it. So we're looking at this as not being a popularity contest in each constituency across Canada. We're looking for candidates who can use their judgment on areas where they have subject matter expertise and just good judgment in other areas of public life to be able to make a positive contribution. So we're going to be going through a really rigorous vetting procedure. First, making sure that we're not getting anyone in who's subject to any form of foreign interference, because the openness of our parties to that has been just disgraceful. And the fact that we're not seeing any action behind the talk in Parliament Hill around this subject is something that certainly upsets me as a Canadian who wants to see my election systems protected from foreign interference, no matter where that interference comes from. So making sure that we're properly foreign interference proofed, making sure we've got people who've got the right judgment and temperament to be politicians. We need to start demanding more of our politicians and political parties, and this party is a part of that effort from the people involved, that we think Canadians deserve better from their parties, and that we've got to start looking inside our own tents in the political class and thinking, like, what are we doing wrong and how can we do better? And I hope people will like the Canadian Future Party, and if they do, get involved. And they can reach out to me anytime. I've always, as a politician, when I was a minister in New Brunswick, gave up my phone number, and I'm going to keep doing that as long as I can federally. You can reach me at 506-238-5550, and you can also reach me at leader@thecanadianfutureparty, all one word, .ca. And please don't call me too early in the morning, because sometimes I am in BC and our time changes. But always happy to chat, and I've picked up some great ideas already across the country from people who've heard me talk about defense issues and procurement and supply management and competition. And experts have called me up and given me ideas that make my parties work better. So let's keep that process going. I don't think that Canadian politics can be made any worse if more Canadians get involved in the process and share good ideas based on evidence. Seems like something we could use more of.
Mr. Cardy, I appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks so much for giving me the time. Talk soon. Take care.
Bye-bye. Dominic Cardy is the leader of the Canadian Future Party, which promises us, as voters, a centrist alternative. Are you looking for that? Does the Canadian Future Party sound like the place you could park your vote? Let me know. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
If we can start talking about more real ideas again, rather than our politicians spending another summer like they did this year, going on about recyclable Tim Hortons coffee cup lids, I think that Canadian politics might be improved by a bit of a reconnection to reality. How do we get our healthcare system to work again? All these different areas. You're going to see some concrete and fairly radical proposals from my party based on evidence, because I think that's what people across the political spectrum are calling out for right now. Is we see more and more rage farming from Mr. Poilievre and Mr. Trudeau, and really not a lot of attention to the issues that matter to Canadians.
Dominic Cardy is the leader of the new Canadian Future Party, emphasizing quality over quantity, so won't commit fully to a full slate of candidates in the next federal election, which is less than a year away, no matter how you slice it, but does commit in the party's constitution to not centralizing power within the leader's office. The Canadian Future Party bills itself as a centrist alternative for Canadian voters. You're a Canadian voter. Are you looking for this centrist alternative? Let's go to the phones, hear from you. Sean, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I would like to see a more centrist party. Honestly, I miss the old federal PC party that was more centrist than the modern Conservative Party. I myself feel sort of disenfranchised right now. I just cannot bring myself to ever vote Liberal, and I view the current Conservative Party with a little bit of distaste because I do not like their leadership, the way they talk, and I'm hoping that maybe a more moderate, slightly Conservative Party led by former PCs might be more palatable and might be more reasonable about things, because I think we are too divided right now, and there's just too much rhetoric. The problem is, though, I don't know if Canadians are ready to be reasonable about stuff, quite honestly. So I listen to people talk and see lots of ranting going on.
Sean, I appreciate that call and that sentiment. I do think there is room for the game to be upped, if you will, when it comes to the caliber of options or elected representative. Right? I would love to see less sizzle and more substance. And I recognize that I am also one who is wont to rant from time to time. So I recognize my place and my role in all of this. But gosh, wouldn't it be nice to hear more about ideas and less about personality traits? And that goes across the board for me. It really does. Another interesting analysis I read recently, because I feel similar to Sean in that I'm a bit of a political nomad right now. But somebody pointed out that the left is meant to be progressive. So it's supposed to be shifting. And if you didn't shift with it, what does that say about you? Like, I feel like I'm clinging to the center over here, but maybe I'm supposed to be, continuing that progress that the left says that they're all about. That's why they're defined as progressive. I don't know. It's tough. I feel as though we are lacking a political center for sure. George, good morning.
Yeah, Mike, as a right-wing Christian conservative, I certainly would think about voting for this future party because they got good ideas. They're going to base it on science. And they're going to base it on reality. I mean, and I'd like the fact there's no, not characters, but people, egos. You don't want that. You want people who are thinking about new ideas, test it, see if it's tried and true, and then take it from there. So, yeah, I would be open for it.
All right, George. Appreciate that call and that thought. I can understand why you would be open for it. And George feels as though this is coming from a very natural place. One would hope then that it remains as pure as it is today in its idea or hypothetical form, right? We'll see. The Canadian Future Party says it's here to offer you the centrist political alternative in Canada. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. How is your neighborhood looking these days? Is it a little brighter when it gets darker in the evening? Lots of decorations going up in the areas that we walk from the Farwell household. And that means the season is upon us. We're going to celebrate the season in the next 30 minutes. A concert coming up on Friday night that you can partake in. And the holidays are a chance to connect with friends, new and old, right? Some old friends I haven't seen in a while are still doing great things, and we're going to talk about it as those old friends join me in studio right after this on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Since when is Jim the quiet guy over here in the corner? Guy didn't say one word during that update as we're all catching up. So I said before the break, and I'm going to give a bit of the backstory right now, that old friends, that's what the holidays are for. Friends, new and old. And in this case, it's a chance for me and some old friends to reconnect. And I don't mean that as an elderly. I just mean we go back a number of years. So let me see. Thanks to the group that is in the studio with me now. I've met Gordie Howe, which is one of the highlights of my professional life, without question. We spent some time together on a community cleanup as I joined their red team. And most importantly, these fellas were a key part of our broadcasts of Kitchener Rangers hockey on Rogers TV when I was doing those games on television. And that shows you how long ago this is, because I haven't done games on television in about 15 years. Mike Torkia was my broadcast partner, and we had a little commercial to read for these gentlemen, and it ended with, "He's a nice guy." And Mike Torkia, took up the mantle on this "he's a nice guy" line and delivered it in a way that only Mike Torkia could deliver it. And it became such a hit with people that at a playoff game one year at the Memorial Auditorium, some fan brought a sign and held it up to the broadcast booth that said, "He's a nice guy." That's, I mean, if you got your McDonald's and your Coca-Cola trademark lines, and then you've got Jeff and Jim Reitzel. He's a nice guy. Keller Williams Innovation, Jim Reitzel in studio. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you again.
Quiet as you've been so far.
Thank you.
Jeff is here as well. Great to see you.
Yep, always great, Mike.
And Josh Reitzel joins us. I have not yet met you, but it's great to have you here as well. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So along with a little trip down memory lane, Jeff, I mean, it's fun to do that and reminisce a little bit, but really what we're here to talk about is the continuing of the Family 100 initiative. Can you take us back to the beginning, 18 years ago now?
Yeah, it's probably a good place to start. So how did this all come about?
How did it?
And how it came about is one year an assistant of mine asked for the afternoon off, and I asked, sure, and can I ask why? And she said, well, we sponsor a local family every year. I think it was the Salvation Army running it at the time, and we buy gifts for a local family. And I said, well, yes, you can have the afternoon off, but I want to come with you. Like, I want to be part of this and see what you're doing. So that year, I wound up personally sponsoring 10 families. And then the next year, 20 or 30. And then started getting our office involved and our community involved. And we've done at least 100 families every year since that date. There's some years where we're up to 155 families. And it's so we purchase gifts for every child. So if there's four kids, they each get a gift in the $50 to $70 range. We purchase stocking and stocking stuffers for each child. So we have 7 to 12 items in every stocking. And then we either do a food hamper or a gift certificate for $100 to a local grocery store. So this, I'm kind of the face of it now, and I have a great face for radio, as you know.
They should name a beer after you.
Yeah. But it is so much more than me. Like, I organize it every year, but it takes hundreds of people. We wrap literally 3,000 to 4,000 stocking stuffers, hundreds of presents, and coordinate and then deliver that within a 1 hour window to all of these families. So
okay, wait a minute. First of all, within an hour, you're not breaking any speed limits here. No moving violations. Okay.
No.
And then the office must become like Santa's workshop.
Oh, right now it's my house. So it starts out my garage and my basement where everything is. And we used to do all of this in my Deer Ridge basement, and now we just can't anymore. It's gotten too big. So we're part of the KW Christmas network. So there's other organizations, the Salvation Army, the Food Bank does a lot of organizing here. And there's about 5,000 families in total in the region that get support through this initiative. So we take on somewhere between 100 to 200 families per year, but it is much bigger than just what we do here.
Incredible. Jim, for you, clearly the apple didn't fall far from the tree. How do you feel watching this initiative not only get started, but grow?
Well, the model, he set such a model for us, and we set the goal. The reason we called it Family 100 is the first year he'd done 10. So I thought, well, let's just make an audacious goal. Let's just make it Family 100. We never imagined that we'd be going past that some years. We've kept the 100 because well, I guess what do? You just keep making the number bigger. So the Family 100 is the concept. And then as the need arises and as the funds come in, because it does take a lot of money each year for us to do this, we're able to go past that 100. And as Jeff has said, sometimes it's up to 155 families. The need definitely is out there. And we're so appreciative. We find the real heroes in all of this is the families that call into the Salvation Army and the House of Friendship and put their name forward. I know the people that do the wrapping and the delivering and the donations are heroes also, but without those adults, telling the Salvation Army that they need help, we wouldn't be able to help them. So we're so appreciative of their leadership in all of this also.
Josh, let me go on a quick tangent here for a moment, because I heard you say during the news update that your claim to fame, like I mentioned meeting Gordy thanks to your dad, was one of the highlights of my professional career. But you got to play hockey with Mr. Hockey. You want to tell me a little bit more about that, please?
Yeah, pretty insane just to say
it's
that.
It's nuts. Yeah.
When I was younger, we'd have like mini sticks in our basement, and I played that with him, and I got hurt pretty bad a couple
I was going to say, did he elbow you? He takes it seriously, right?
Yeah, he's rough. That does not go away with age. Whoever says that is lying. He still had it.
I love it. I love it.
It was great.
And he was just Uncle Gordy to you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, John, you don't remember the first interaction. I do. We're at a Red Wings game. I'm helping Gordy with an autograph session, and I said, "Hey, Josh, I want you to come over here to meet Gordie Howe." And he said, "No, actually, I want to get some pizza." So
Wait a minute.
He was really young. He didn't know who Gordie Howe was at the time.
Sure.
Like, he was probably 4 or 5 years old, and here I'm doing this I wasn't doing an autograph session. Gordy was. I don't know that anyone's ever asked for my autograph, but it was just too funny. You probably don't remember that either, Josh.
No, I don't.
All right. Well, I had to go on that brief tangent because you mentioned it. But Josh, as you watch this Family 100 grow and develop through your life, I mean, what's it been like for you being a part of this and experiencing this?
Well, when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, there's just 30 people in your basement and you don't really know what's going on. It's just a big party.
Yeah, just another day in the Reitzel household.
Yeah. Once you, growing up, and I'm just like, you think about it more and you're like, what is my dad and family and my what are they doing here? And it's something nobody else really does to this extent. And being a part of that is something crazy. It's so nice because now every year there's always new people that come to help, and you just get to meet with them, talk to them, talk about how the year's gone. It is a community building thing as well as helping out of the community as well.
Yeah, it's a great little KW Christmas network as we're so close to that time of year, right? We're about a month away now. How can people get involved? Like, what can we do for Family 100 this year, Jeff?
So I wanted to touch on one other thing, that what we're providing here, we do gifts and stocking stuffers and food, but what we're really providing, Mike, is hope. Hope for a lot of these families that somebody cares. We all know the economic times right now, and it's pretty rough. Like the Christmas Support Network reached capacity on November 7th. So they couldn't take on anything new after November 7th. That's how much help is needed in the community right now. So when we deliver these gifts, and I actually don't do any of the deliveries anymore because I think it's such a gift to allow somebody else to do it, to show up at that house with everything's in black garbage bags, and that's done on purpose because if the kids are there, we don't want the kids to know what's going on. To see the joy on those parents' faces, that we get letters and calls from them, and some of them will say, we were going to skip Christmas this year. We were just going to pass by it as if it didn't happen. You have given us hope, and you have brought Christmas to our family, or whatever holiday they choose to celebrate. So it is really what we're providing. We do that through the gifts, but we're providing hope to these families and letting them know that this community of KW, we care about the people that are in this community, and there's lots of people that care. So I said this a number of years ago. I say, the gifts don't wrap themselves, the gifts don't deliver themselves, and the gifts don't buy themselves. So 3 things need to happen there. We need financial support for sure to purchase the gifts. We need power on those days in order to be able to wrap the gifts, and then we need people to help deliver. So there are going to be listeners right now who go, I can't afford anything right now, so I can't help this cause. You can. You can come and help wrap stocking stuffers, even if you're no good at wrapping. It's okay.
Good, because I'm terrible.
We'll teach you. And you can also come and help deliver that day. So if people want to find out more information, they could go to eventbrite.ca and type in Family 100. All of the particulars will be there, and then they can register to help wrap or deliver. There's also a button on there that they could click Donate Now and make a financial contribution. All of the contributions, no matter how small, do get a tax receipt through our partner Possibilities International. And if you went to Possibilities International's website, which is the letter I, the number 1, the letter R, the letter U.com, so it's im1ru.com, you can also support Family 100 that way. They'll take donations on their website. If you do happen to go to their website to make a donation, it would be helpful if you do specify Family 100. They do amazing work all over the world. And if you just make a donation, it'll get allocated to wherever is the greatest need right now. So do make sure you mention Family 100. So you can go to, as I said, eventbrite.ca. You could also email me at Jeff, Jeff, at JIMREITZEL.com. That's Jeff at JimReitzel.com. And then I can send you a link to register. And this doesn't happen without the support of this community. We have a big support from our office community at KW. Fibernetics, which is a local business in town, support us greatly every year. The Deer Ridge community, the Conestoga Lake community, and then everybody in my world. Stacy at my office, who makes these 100 phone calls to arrange delivery times. So, Mike, it's down to a science that day that we get there around 7 a.m. at the facility. We load all of the stocking stuffers and the gifts. By 10:45, everything is wrapped and in bags and ready to be delivered. Like, it's an hour and 45 minutes now. It is amazing to see. It used to be a 2-day event. It's now an hour and 45 minutes.
It's a well-oiled machine.
We eat pizza, and we're out the door, and we deliver. So
Mike Torkia delivered that message perfectly all those years ago. He's a nice guy. Jeff and Jim Reitzel, Keller Williams Innovation. Josh in studio with us as well. Thanks for what you do, and let's keep going. Family 100.
Thank you for what you do.
We appreciate it.
Good to see you all. It's the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I love Christmas. I love it. Great to catch up with some old friends. The Reitzels talk about Family 100. If that doesn't get you in the mood, a little bit of music is sure to do that. This Friday at historic St. Paul's Lutheran Church, it is the Christmas Cantata. Steve Ritter is on the committee organizing it and joins us for a conversation. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing really well, but how are you doing more importantly?
Well, I said to somebody the other day, I'm not overwhelmed, but I'm certainly whelmed. We've got quite a production put together here for this Friday at the Center in the Square. It is our congregation, Historic St. Paul's, as you mentioned, spearheading it, but we've got an all-star cast of choir members from all over the place. We've had people coming in from Mississauga to our rehearsals, and these people have sung with the Menno Singers, Alfred Kuntz's ensembles, and I think we're up to 107 voices in the choir, and of course we'll be singing with the players of the KW Symphony, so it's going to be an amazing program. Telling the Christmas story and a great way to usher in the Christmas season.
I love it. I can feel it when you talk about that, 100 strong in the choir, the symphony, the environment, the venue is absolutely perfect. We were just at the Center in the Square last weekend, and it's one of the best around, no question about it. What goes into, you said you're whelmed. I mean, what's gone into, and how has Historic St. Paul's as a congregation pulled this off?
Well, I mean, there's lots of things from, just the program and the advertisers and that sort of thing, and ticket information, working back and forth with the center, and, just finding a venue. In 2008, when we did this the first time, we did it in our sanctuary. From there, we grew to St. Mary's, which was a bigger venue for us, and eventually we ended up at the center in the square. But the last time we've done it was 2019. So we've circled the wagons, and we're back at it again with a great program. This one's called Tidings of Joy. It's a work by Joseph Martin. It's kind of a Celtic flavor to it, which is super fun music. And to that, we've added familiar pieces that everybody will know: Silent Night, O Como Como Emmanuel, Man Away in a Manger, that sort of thing. So we'll get the audience singing along as well, and it's just going to be a great time.
I love it. And way to circle those wagons. It's for good reason. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that the holidays are all about. Where can we find tickets, Steve, and how can we be a part of this on Friday night?
Well, you can certainly go to the Center in the Square website, but you can also jump on ours. It's historicstpauls.ca, all lowercase all together, and Saint is just ST, so historicstpauls.ca, and then /cantata, and you'll have a ticket button right there in front of you to click on. And I do need to mention that this is in support of our affordable housing project that we've got going on here at Queen and Church. In 2019, the leadership of our congregation just met to explore how we can make better use of our property and the assets here. We've had a long-standing program called the Community Cupboard, which serves our community with food items, pantry items, household needs, clothing, and the residential piece just seemed to be the next progression of that. Oddly enough, Mike, there's a waiting list of over 6,000 families in our region. And to my surprise, if somebody's household costs, if your rent represents more than 30% of your income, you can be on this list. So a person making $50,000, if 15,000 goes to your housing, you qualify. And what can you rent in our area for $1,250 a month?
It's an excellent point, and you beat me to the affordable housing project because I wanted to make sure we did emphasize that. Why, as a congregation, did you decide to get involved in this?
Well, 20 years ago now, we looked at something by way of a retirement community, and we did end up building Sandhills community next door, and the piece on our property was to be a nursing home. And it just never came to fruition with the powers that be and granting our beds and that sort of thing. And so we were led in this direction a couple of decades later, and I think it's going to be a great solution for these families. What we're building is a 6-story, 57-unit complex, and it's hardly going to make a dent in that waiting list of 6,000 families, but it's going to be a great community geared to seniors, and there's just such a need. You just finished a great segment there with Family 100, and there's lots of good programs in the area, and we've got lots of kind and generous people as well, and you've always been a champion for good when it comes to that, so we appreciate it, Mike.
Steve, listen, my hat's off to you and the congregation at Historic St. Paul's. Whether it makes a dent, well, it does make a dent. However small, you're doing your part. And what a great way to do it with the cantata this Friday night. Thanks so much for everything you do and for making time on the show this morning.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Hope to see everybody Friday night.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.
You too. See you, Mike.
Steve Ritter with Historic St. Paul's, the congregation putting on the annual Christmas Cantata. This year it's Tidings of Joy. Center in the Square Friday night. Visit historicstpauls.ca to get your tickets, and you're supporting their affordable housing project in so doing. This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It's time for your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Like 30 seconds ago. To the news center we go, and then to your phone calls for the next 60 minutes on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage out of sight, or you don't go out Friday night. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Well, who's up for a little more conversation? This time, you're the one that gets to start it. We have brought you an awful lot on the show today and had some fun in the process. Whether or not we should tax churches, whether or not we need a centrist alternative by way of a new political party in this country as the Canadian Future Party tries to gain some traction. And, of course, we are into that holiday season. We used to drive around, when we were driving around the city near the holidays, we used to shout out from the back seat, 1, 2, 3 decorations every time we passed a house with lights on. I tell you what, if I did that in my neighborhood these days, I'd be saying it a lot, because lots of people are way ahead of me in getting their Christmas stuff up. The Talkback Hour is your chance to start the conversation. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Jody, good afternoon.
Hi there, Mike. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you today?
I'm all right.
Good.
You were talking about different opinions about the political parties.
Yes.
Well, I think it's up to the voters what happens, because as far as I heard, if you don't vote, you have nothing to complain about, and if you do vote, you have everything to complain about. So, maybe these people should get out and vote.
That's, you know what? A great point. I love the sentiment, and the Canadian Future Party would like to be another option for you on the ballot the next time we come to a federal election. Just imagine that. The Liberals, the NDP, the Conservatives, the People's Party, and the Canadian Future Party as well. James, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. There's a big thing happening tonight.
Yes, there is, James. I hope we're talking about the same.
Auditorium.
Yes, it is. That's right. Let's go. Let's go, you Rangers.
Yep, I've been a fan since 1963. I was at the very first game, and I'm only 20 years old. I
love it. I love it.
Believe it, right?
I believe it. 100% I believe that. Yep.
Yeah. Well, maybe I feel like that when I'm at a Ranger game anyhow.
Good man. Good man.
Oh, boy, it's going to be an exciting night tonight.
It certainly will be. So I assume, since you were there from the beginning, you're going to be there again tonight.
Oh, yes. I've had season tickets since 1967. That's when I graduated from Teachers College, and I said to my mom, is it all right if I wait for a month before I pay board? And she said, you don't have to pay any board at all when you're here. So she said, you go get your Rangers tickets. And I've had season tickets almost every year since. And my wife got sick for a couple of years, and I couldn't buy them. But then I got my season tickets again. So
good for you. What section are you in?
Section 14. I used to be in Section 22 at first, but I was able to get tickets in Section 14 right at the blue line. We're in the top row of the gold seats.
Beautiful. So you're about directly opposite our broadcast booth then, because that would be the blue line for the opposing team.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. That's where I want to be because the play's always down in that end, except when we're down there.
So you're gonna have a really good view of Dale Hunter and the London Knights bench tonight.
Oh yeah. Maybe I can throw some. No, I can't do that.
That a boy. Okay, yeah. Keep it clean now, James. We'll just cheer. Okay, we'll behave ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff.
No, I'm excited about it. A friend of mine goes with me. We have a couple seats there together, and boy, we know all the fans. They've been there forever, and it's a great section to be in because we're all loyal Ranger fans. The one guy has a cousin who lives in London. Bad word, right? But anyhow,
I'll allow it.
Yeah.
But it's not my favorite word. I'll tell, or my favorite city.
Great. And you know what? We listen to your show every single night after the game, and we hardly ever call you. But I thought I'm going to call you today. I'm on my way to see my brother-in-law who's in a nursing home, and I thought, well, I'm going to give you a call and just let you know how much we think of you. You're the greatest. I listen to the games when we're out of town, and you are just so awesome. What a great privilege it is to have you as our greatest Ranger supporter because you sure support them.
I certainly, I'll fight you for that title for sure. I give them my very best. I love that team, absolutely. Thanks, James.
And you have for years. So thank you, Mike. Great talking with you.
Great talking with you, and give my best to your brother-in-law as you see him today, please.
Thanks. He loves the Rangers, too. He watches it on TV.
Well, he's my kind of guy then. Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Thanks, James.
Thanks a lot.
All right.
Okay.
Great to hear from you today. Look at that. And I'm glad James brought it to the conversation because I have been looking forward to this game since last week. No offense to the Peterborough Petes and the Sarnia Sting, but and the team cannot look past the game in front of them, and the Rangers did a very good job. They won on Friday. They won on Sunday. Like they're supposed to do. Pay attention to the team in front of you. But even before the weekend, I was looking ahead to this week. London tonight, Windsor on Friday, Erie on Saturday. We are about to learn a little bit more about what our Kitchener Rangers are all about. And I am here. I will lead that parade of fans if they'll let me. I'll go in the back of the line too. I don't care. But I will support as loudly as I can. Yes, I'm a homer. So what? They're my favorite team. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. It is a busy show for busy people. Let's get right back to the phones, you busy people. Kyle, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Every time I hear that team that shall not be named down the 401, it makes my blood boil. And the only way I can get my blood boil and let it all out is just to go, woo! Let's go, Rangers! Thanks, man. Have a good day.
Thanks, Kyle. You too. I'm going to have a good day now. And you know what? I've been down that road, literally, to London. And also figuratively with the do not name. In fact, I used to say some pretty nasty stuff. I had this phrase I would always use when it came to London and the rivalry between the Rangers and the Knights. And then somebody said to me, do you think Don Cameron ever would have talked like that? I'm like, oh, gosh. Like, why don't you bring my mentor and my radio broadcasting sports hero into this and make me feel like the schmuck that I am? So I'll tell you what. Here's the truth of it all. And Don, he was such a good man and a good friend, was a fan of the team that shall not be named in the NHL. I stick by that one, Mr. Cameron. I'm sorry. I always think of you, but I can't get behind that team. And they're professionals, so they can live with it. But out of respect, because whoever called me on my crap was right about it, Don would never say such nasty things about the London Knights. So I don't do that anymore. You can name the team. You can name the city. In truth, like I don't love the city of London. You ever tried driving around there? Holy Hannah, what a mess. But anyway, London's London. We're Kitchener. It's going to be a great game at the Odd tonight. Just a great game at the Odd tonight. Andre, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
You can keep talking. It's just, sometimes I wonder myself, Mike, why do I pay attention sometimes? Because I don't eat breakfast no more. And it's just some subjects are just such a gut. a punch in the gut, right? But
so you don't eat breakfast before the show because if you get punched in the gut, you don't want to toss your cookies. Is that what you're telling me?
Mike. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I am very thankful to listen to James about the Rangers, about him being a fan.
Since day one. How cool was that, eh?
Oh, my goodness gracious. And he, like you said, Mike, if you can't reach me, find another line. And he did the next day. That's awesome. But what I wanted to, great show, again, like usual. I really love the subject. And a couple ones. Yes, I did notice that a lot of people are putting Christmas up already instead of December 1st this year. So that's pretty blessing, I guess. People are in a great spirit. And the one that I love the most today, Mike, is Craig Campbell about the...
So Craig Campbell's the executive director of Rangers Reach, and they just made a $50,000 donation to the Sexual Assault Support Center.
Yes. And you know, Mike, I'll say it because we can't hide it no more, but there's a lot of women in my life that I've heard something like that. And I'm even teaching my son that no means no and stuff like that. We need more education. And I'm just thankful, grateful that our Kitchener Rangers do something like that. Because to me, there's cancer that's 40% or 30%. This is something that is so, small. It could be stopped and it could be taught, and to respect others. And it just... Thank you for doing that. And, tonight, Mike, I will drink a bottle of wine. I will pay attention. And just please, guys, no misconduct. Don't get under this. Keep focusing. And let's go Rangers.
All right, Andre. Appreciate the call. Let's go next to Jonathan. Jonathan, you're on the Talkback Hour.
Hey, Mike. Let's go Rangers.
Johnny Hawaii. Let's go Rangers.
I just thought I keep hearing this commercial about a Craig. Is it like how nice of a guy Craig is? Is this talking about Craig Campbell or?
How nice of a guy? Well, Craig is a great guy. Yes.
Yeah, or like there's a commercial that keeps playing in between your segments here. That.
Oh yeah, it must be about Craig. I think Craig wrote that commercial actually. Yeah.
But yeah, I just want. Well, you never know. Or we're at a time now where it's like you don't know what you can say anymore, or like what will get you a suspension, what will get you in trouble. But so it's I don't know. It's a funny time we're in right now. But yeah. So and some words to me should be more offensive than others, but aren't for some reason. Like for example, I won't get into it much, but I'm just going to call my team now the Rangers OHL hockey team rather than the city name, because I think the city name's pretty offensive actually. But anyways, that's another.
Wait a minute, you got something? You got something against Kitchener?
Yeah, I do. Have you read the history?
Oh gosh, yeah.
He started concentration camps which killed many people, and it was horrible. I was just reading about it, or it's on Wikipedia, or I saw talking to ChatGPT about it. It gave me a lot of information.
Are we going to go back to Berlin then? Is that what we're going to do?
I have some ideas of what we could move towards, but or Berlin actually, it would fit the London. If there was a London-Berlin rivalry, it'd be a pretty cool rivalry name, I guess. But anyways, to wrap up my point here about free speech. I'll say, go Rangers. And then, although they're not my favorite team, go Montreal Canadiens. Baby.
Oh, my gosh, he did it. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Holy cow, that's something we don't allow on this show.
Dumbass.
I'm just going to move right on from there. Don't bring that happy crappy. I trusted Jonathan until now. And by the way, speaking of free speech, I'll still call them the Kitchener Rangers, okay?
Dumbass.
This is the Mike Farwell Show. 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, 570 News Radio. And when the Talkback Hour continues, it means it continues with your phone calls. Back to the phones. Charlie, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Great hearing you on the hockey games. I'm back at it again. My work outside's pretty well done, and I'm doing good. Mike, Dominic Carty this morning struck a nerve. Mike, we in Canada, the last 5 years turned into a country where we have a hard time putting food on the table and a roof over our heads. Maybe it's time for a little bit of new management or along them lines.
I hear where you're coming from, Charlie. It might be some different ideas, but it's the same old people involved, right?
Well, it could be, but we need some new ideas. We need something new, Mike.
So you think the Canadian Future Party might be a place for you?
Well, you never know. We see how they do and how they can, handle things and everything. Well, what do we got now, Mike? I'm a conservative, but I'm losing hope.
I share your frustration, Charlie. I do. I'm feeling that same financial pinch that you're talking about. It's really expensive out there, and I'm not sure any of them are putting forward ideas that I can fully get behind. It might be which one we dislike the least when it's time to vote again.
You're right, Mike.
Yeah. Listen,
okay, thanks for talking.
It's great to hear your voice, Charlie. Stay well.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. The Canadian Future Party and its leader, Dominic Carty, a part of our show today. They say they are offering Canadians, a centrist alternative when we go to the polls. Grant, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Yeah. I've been waiting for this game since they've been talking about the U.S. election.
You've been waiting for Rangers Knights for about a month and a half now.
I got my season's tickets in my apartment, on the couch.
Good man. Good man.
And I hope they're not too timid like they were last year against them. I hope I think it's gonna go back and forth and goal wise because both teams can score goals, right? And yeah, I think it could go into extra time, I think.
Whoa, bonus hockey, eh, Grant?
And you're like our Bart Winkler. I like Bart.
I love Bart. Bart's so good.
Yeah, he's kind of neat.
He is kind of neat. Bart Winkler, you'll hear him on sports radio in our late night and overnight hours here on 570 News Radio. Just in case you need a little bit more of a primer for tonight's Rangers Knights games, the CHL top 10 rankings are out. Those rankings show London ranked number 1, Kitchener ranked number 7. The OHL's power rankings are out of all 20 teams. And those power rankings in the Ontario Hockey League show London 1 and Kitchener 2. What a pair of teams to have clashing at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium tonight. The only question still to be answered, besides who ultimately emerges the victor tonight, how many fans are going to be at the game? Like, I'm thinking we're going 7,000 plus at the Memorial Auditorium tonight. If you can't make it there, though, we've got you covered right here. Paul Fixter and I on the air with the Harris Law pregame show at 6:30. This is your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. A busy Talkback Hour, just the way we like it. Right back to the phones we go. Tom is with us. Good afternoon, Tom.
Good afternoon, Mike. I haven't talked to you in a while. I was listening to your early part of the show there with the $200 that Mr. Ford is giving us and the gentleman who sent you the email. That's a great idea. I don't know why. Maybe you and I should probably start this and head this off, but it's basically our money coming back to us. And knowing what we have, the issues with healthcare and some other things, that money would be better spent and better used going back into into the infrastructure of keeping our healthcare services up to date.
I think there are many better things we could decide to do with $3 billion. But yeah, if you run some numbers rather conservatively, about $100 million is going to land somewhere in this region. And for those that think, you know what, the $200 won't make or break me, well, maybe we could collectively. I mean, if 1% of those people who got the money here decided to donate it to the same cause, that's $1 million rolling out the door.
Absolutely. On the other side, Mike, I just want to end with this. I don't know how a Crown Corporation loses $3 billion.
Are you sure about that? Because it's a Crown Corporation, Tom.
Well, but then nobody's being held accountable for losing that much money. I'm pretty sure if you ran your radio station and you lost $3 billion, you may not have a job tomorrow.
I can guarantee you that you are right about that, sir.
Thanks very much, Mike.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate the call. Let's go next to Joe. Joe, good afternoon. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Good afternoon, Mike. Looking forward to the game tonight. Big one. Hope they kick some you-know-what.
I hope they do, too.
I don't like to rant on a Tuesday, but try to get to the club today, and you can't get down Duke Street. It's an absolute fire. It's dumpster fire. It's just a crap show. I couldn't even get out of the club when I was finished, and they shut the water off and didn't warn us.
Okay, wait, back up. Which club are we talking about here, Joe?
One downtown, the Racket Club.
Oh, and you were on Duke Street?
Yeah. What a crap show, man.
What was something going on, or was it just bad traffic?
There's construction everywhere. Friggin' construction. You can't get down King. That was like flag waving, the stop sign guys. That was a crap show. I had to go off for King, then cross over and go on to Weber, which is a total tire dumpster fire, man. Like, where's the city planning? It's just such a crap show. Anyway, that's my rant. I'm pissed off. See you later.
Okay, bye. I hope you get less pissed off as the day goes on. I find it so funny. And it is actually kind of funny, right? Because it's an absolute crap show because we were in it and that's where we needed to get to and the construction was getting in our way. And look, I get as frustrated as the next person does with it. It just seems to be every time you turn, there's another construction zone that you're running into. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done. We know this. In fact, we are behind on the work that needs to be done. And this is going to be one of the things that costs our cities a whole heck of a lot of money in the not too distant future. Well, I shouldn't even say that. It's happening right now. But anyway, I get the frustration. I'm here to hear about the frustration. It's one of those things that we inevitably will complain about. There's a reason that saying exists, right? In Canada, we have two seasons, hockey season and construction season. Let's go to the inbox, Mike at 570news.com. Clinton writes regarding encampments. We talked about that at the beginning of the show today, and I asked what you would like to do because we've heard from overall a small number of municipal councillors in Ontario, overall a small number of mayors in Ontario, and they seem to think that we should either invoke the notwithstanding clause. About 3% of mayors feel that way. About 2% of councillors say we should oppose the use of the notwithstanding clause to clear encampments. But what about you? Are they representing your voice in this? And Clinton writes to Mike at 570news.com in bold with 3 exclamation points, clear the encampments. I'll take it one step further, Clinton writes. I feel the homeless need to be put into rehabilitation programs to help them become a contributing member of our community. They should get jobs, have a real house/apartment, etc. I'm all for helping them get back on their feet, even if it means rehabilitation because they are addicts, but I'm not for allowing them to live permanently in a tent. That from Clinton via email to Mike at 570news.com. That sounds eerily similar to what Premier Ford said a couple of months back. Get off your ASS and get a job. And that was the Premier's comments as well. Back to the phones on this Talkback Hour. Asif, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Just speaking of construction, I was literally just standing right beside a construction zone. Like as the guy was talking about construction, I was like, "Oh, I'm here too."
There's construction everywhere, Asif. It's the time of year for construction.
Yeah, and the other thing is the person who said, "Go."
Don't you say that, Asif. I'll hang up the phone.
I'm not saying
Okay.
I think the city is nice, but the team, I hate it.
Exactly. Thank you.
Have a good day.
All right, you too. Appreciate that. I love the city. It's a great city. The hockey team can just go pound some salt. Speaking of hockey teams, though, and you know my favorite, being the Toronto Maple Leafs. And what I like to do in the morning after the Leafs played the night before is this thing I call AM on AM in the AM. Austin Matthews, his initials are AM. So we play Austin Matthews on AM radio in the AM part of the day. And I get to replay a goal for you that Matthews scored the night before. It's an awesome feature because all Austin Matthews does is score, except this season, because all Austin Matthews has done is be away from the team and away from the game because he's injured. And Colin Robertson, who's our guy on the other side of the glass today, informed me earlier this hour that the Austin Matthews injury update is that he's in Munich, dealing with a doctor he has dealt with before. If you're going to Munich to get healed faster, I am very worried as a Maple Leafs fan. They don't have good enough doctors in Toronto? Uh-oh. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, 570 News Radio. Many of you are up for a conversation today. I'm here for it every day from 9 until 1. Your Talkback Hour continues. Francis, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you today?
Now, I hear so much about how the different churches are so rich. I'd like to make a quick comment on that.
Sure.
I have 4 forefathers buried at the Formosa Cemetery, the Immaculate Conception. When that church was completely built, there was not one penny owed on it. And it was done by all the pioneers of the time. I could name some names, but I won't. That carved out the altar. And there's a lot of all labor and people helping out with their hearts. And you'll never find a nicer community than what you would when you say go to the Formosa Lakes at Christmas time. People get along with each other. We need God in our life, and like to try to put taxes on it. And another way the government wants to use our money foolishly, just like the Wilmot Town Line. And what are they doing with it? Like I said, this is disgusting.
So you think we should be taxing churches, Francis?
I certainly do not. They do so good. And why do they good? Because people give up their heart. And get their final pennies and what have you. There's a lot of good people. There's so little we can write off now as it is, and then once they do that, people even get less money.
Yeah. Francis, appreciate the call. Thanks for making it. We did have an interesting conversation earlier today about whether or not churches should pay taxes. The nonpartisan think tank, Cardis, which is based in Hamilton, argues that the tax exemption status returns a socioeconomic benefit of more than $16 billion, a number which would be reduced dramatically, if not eliminated, should we start to tax churches. And some of that goodwill goes away. And lots of feedback from that via email today. Just to clarify something I said earlier, too, when we were talking about it, and that is around the wealth in the churches. I didn't mean necessarily the individual churches, but if we think of the Catholic Church as an example, or the Church of Scientology as another, as institutions, they have more money than we can, in some cases, even comprehend. I know that individual parishes have been going through some significant difficulty with declining attendance, et cetera. But the churches as institutions have lots and lots of money. Mary, we come next to you on the Talkback Hour. Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Mary. Mary. Yes.
I'm on my bike going to San Jose.
Is that where you're riding today? How nice does it look there? Because it's kind of dreary out my window.
Oh, well, I've not gotten there yet.
Okay.
But
You let me know when you get to San Jose, young lady.
Anyway, and I called in, as you know, about the churches. And the guest you had from Historic St. Paul's tied into that very, very nicely. Some people think, the churches should pay the taxes. The churches should this and that. Well, They do a lot of good.
They do.
They do an awful lot of good.
You know what, though, Mary? Some people who don't go to any church at all do an awful lot of good, too.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
But Bill Maher or whatever,
Yeah.
he's a nut bar.
Is he a nut bar?
He is.
Why?
Well, he's way out in everything. He's disgusting.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But anyway, I'm so happy that you had the guy on from Historic St. Paul's.
Wasn't Steve Ritter great? They're doing the Christmas Cantata this Friday night, Center in the Square, and the money raised, proceeds are going to the affordable housing project at Historic St. Paul's.
That's what I said to you.
Yes, they do good.
Historic St. Paul's is building affordable housing on their property.
You did tell me that. St. Mark's is doing it too?
Yeah, and I would say they ought to pay tax. If they paid taxes, it would disappear in somebody's pockets all over the where. Wouldn't it?
It might. It might,
it will. But they're all volunteers. They don't get paid. So think about that.
Okay, I'll think about it. Good luck getting to San Jose. Thank you. Bill Maher, the host of Real Time on HBO, had this to say about churches paying taxes or not.
The Supreme Court of the United States really needs to take a case about taxing churches because it hasn't done that since 1970. And since then, religion has become much less popular, especially with younger people. And it's not just millennials, my flock. The atheists, agnostics, and anti-religionists out there are now the second biggest denomination in America, right behind evangelicals. We're 22.8%. That means almost a quarter of us in America are being forced to subsidize a myth that we're not buying into. Why am I subsidizing their Sunday morning hobby? They don't subsidize mine.
And Mary thinks that Bill Maher is a little bit on the disgusting side. That was his take from many years ago, and it was actually the reason that Cardis undertook, or one of the arguments against tax exemption for churches that Cardis used in creating its case for why the tax exempt status should remain. Different points of view. That's what this show is all about. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. The show is the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Few minutes away from 1 o'clock, at which time we will get you an update from the 570 News Center. And then Rob Snow coming up with Now You Know until 3 this afternoon. At that time, Paul McPhee, Aaron Anderson will take you through all news afternoons until 6:30. And that's when Paul Fixter and I will be back right here on 570 News Radio, your Harris Law pregame show, getting you set for Rangers Knights. Oh, baby. It is a big one at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium tonight. If you missed it earlier today, I'll just remind you that the City of Waterloo and its council unanimously last night endorsing a recommendation from city staff in Waterloo to bring to an end the animals and the animal enclosures in Waterloo Park. Now, the older I've gotten, the less I like zoos and other areas where you just go and admire the animals through glass or through a fence of some kind. I don't care how big the enclosure is. I just don't think it's natural. I don't like it for the animal. So other than the nostalgia that comes with memories of being a kid and going to the Waterloo Park and feeding the animals and doing the other things you got to do, the petting zoo, all that stuff, this one makes some sense to me. I found it interesting that one of the points raised in support of removing the animals and the animal enclosures from the park is that the animal enclosures are right near the light rail transit tracks and the trains are so noisy. They're electric. It's an electric train. It's electric. One of the selling features when we built LRT was how quietly they were going to move around our streets. One of the reasons we say there are so many collisions is because the trains are so quiet, except when they're next to the animal enclosures, and I guess then they're too loud. Anyway, it makes sense to me in the modern era to remove the animals from, not the wild animals, they're just the ones in the enclosures. The rest of you wild animals can still continue using Waterloo Park for whatever you use it for, but the animal enclosures are gone. $75,000 in savings will be realized by the city of Waterloo for doing this in operational costs. I'm sure Waterloo will find another bike lane to build with the $75K. That's one of their favorite things to do in Waterloo, is build bike lanes. So anyway, if you missed that earlier today, it's something that Waterloo Council unanimously endorsed last night. All right, I must make my way out of here, make way for Rob Snow, and Now You Know, and get myself ready. We're going to have a big game tonight. Not only a big game on the ice, but some great content for you during our broadcast. Paul and I always put our very best effort into that. So if you can't make it to the game, then just tune in right here and we'll keep you entertained right through Rangers talk after the game. It may be a weeknight or a school night, as I like to call it, but we stay up late because it's a home game. And after home games, we spend an hour on Rangers talk with you. That's all coming up. Colin Robertson has been our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.